Give me one moment to share my screen. Okay. Excellent. So, hello, everyone. Before I begin, as always, dealing with technology, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen clearly and if you can hear me clearly. And of course, if you can see me clearly. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's get started. 21st century competencies. Teaching students, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat box, has been more challenging now than ever before. Because I believe and I feel that technology makes our social interactions with our students a little bit more detached. And so our students, being social by nature, is having this social media take them away from building, enhancing some of their 21st century competencies. Now, could you please write in the chat box, what are some of your students' biggest challenges in the classroom when it comes to English? What would be some of their challenges in using the language? Communication, speaking, lack of vocabulary. Yes, that's very important. And of course, there's a new vocabulary, a TikTok vocabulary that we have to start learning. Technology, speaking and writing. Speaking, speaking, speaking. A lot of you are writing speaking as a competency, a skill that our students are having a weakness in. And maybe one of the reasons why it's speaking and communication is because they're afraid of sounding different. They're afraid of making mistakes. Maybe they're feeling pressured that they have to sound like a native speaker, which in my opinion is wrong. And so we need to work together, you and I, and as a team, to change our students' mindset when it comes to this. Okay. Now, what exactly are 21st century competencies? Very simply put, they're a set of abilities that students need to succeed in this information society. And one teacher argued with me once and said, well, students are communicating online. Students are communicating through AI. Students are communicating through social media. And I said, yes, you are correct, but they are actually hiding behind that screen. Things become very different when you put students in a face-to-face environment and in an experience where these students have to practice their vocabulary, their listening, their communication. And so we have to prepare our students for the future. So there are many, many competencies that I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to make some association with some of these competencies with one of our course books. This way we can put it, we can be able to make this connection with lessons that we can teach. So the course book I'm going to be referencing is Portal to English. Now, these competencies that I just showed you, who created these competencies? Where did they come from? Did they just fall from the sky? Did someone just wake up one morning and say, you know what? I think that students need to learn these things. Absolutely not. These competencies actually began from teachers realizing that there's much more needed in class than just the macro and the micro skills of English. Speaking, listening, writing, and reading. Vocabulary and grammar. Okay, those are great. Those are the cornerstones of English. But these teachers, along with education experts, found that there's other things in life that students need for when they finish school and go into the world of business and when they create their own career paths. So this synergy between business leaders that say, we are looking for employees that have these specific competencies. For these specific competencies to be learned, education experts in universities and colleges and institutes came together and they said, we want your students to have these. But it's not fair for students to wait till they go to university to start learning these competencies. Wouldn't you agree? Shouldn't these students learn these competencies earlier on and get a taste of what they're about? And so teachers became involved in this discussion. So there is a change going on in which we have globalization and we have this insane rapid development in information and communication technologies. And when these come together, there is a very, very vast need for creative and innovative employees. And this is what we want in Ukraine. We want the future global agents of change, FGACs, future global agents of change in Ukraine, your students, to have all of these competencies offered to them so they can be well equipped for their future. But why do this? Why is this important? Why don't we just teach English and have them pass tests? Our job is difficult enough, isn't it? Teaching is one of the most difficult jobs in the world because we are teaching FGACs, students, and giving them our hearts. Emotionally, it's challenging for us. Our minds, mentally, it's challenging for us teachers. And physically, it's challenging for us teachers. So why should we do this? Why implement these competencies? We're doing enough, aren't we? We can always do better, right? I think students deserve it. I think students have this need of having us teachers not just be teachers. That we as teachers connect with students, form these amazing relationships with students to have learning become more engaging, more fun, more nurturing. And when that happens, students will realize that it's not necessarily all about passing a test. It's not necessarily learning a language just to learn a language. That they're learning English for long-term success. Would you agree? That our responsibility as a teacher goes way beyond the book. Now, when we have a book, though, that incorporates the competencies along with the macro and micro skills of English, then we are giving our students the utmost resources for them to learn. So basically, what it all boils down to is this: lifelong learning. We never stop learning. Students never stop. I mean, students never stop learning, but we're also students, aren't we? We constantly learn. At least I do. I learn from students. I learn from you guys. I learn from teachers, from reading your comments and your ideas. Live and learn. I love that. Yes, I like that. Live and learn. I'm going to use that. L&L. So take a look. I mean, there's quite a bit of competencies that students need to know about. And I'm not going to take time to go through all of them, but I will give you some examples of some. Let's take the foundational literacies. We have literacy as a whole, numeracy, scientific literacy, ICT literacy, financial literacy, and cultural and civil literacy. Now, these four subjects, students learn these in school. These are actual subjects in school. Okay. But let's take a look at number 5, financial literacy. Now, I have a son who's 11 and my daughter who's 16. And so I'm very well aware of what's going on with TikTok and YouTube and Reels and stories and AI. And it's amazing how there are so many influencers saying regarding financial literacy that if you go here and click on this link and open an account and open up a shop and do this and go there and do that, that in 1 month you will make 10,000 euros, $15,000. And I say, if it was that easy, I think all of us here today would be doing that and not teaching. So when it comes to financial literacy, let me show you an example. This is from Portal. Money, excuse me. Money makes the world go round. Okay. Here is a lesson that touches upon financial literacy. Dare I say that this is one of students' most favorite lessons in the course book. And why is this? Because it literally touches upon what they are experiencing in life. So we are incorporating English with a theme, a concept that they want to learn about. So we're taking this competency and implementing it into our English subject. Okay. Moving from financial literacy, cultural and civic literacy. Now, this isn't a subject that is taught in school, but yet we take this into account and we ask ourselves, how can we offer some insight for students to be exposed to both cultural and civic literacy? Here's an example. With cultural literacy, we offer students a culture page in which we are taking them out of Ukraine and bringing them to different parts of the world and giving them a taste of information regarding those areas. Here we have Ireland, Scotland, England, and Australia. And to build on this competency of cultural literacy, down here we have a project. And this culture page focuses on cuisine, food, eating. And so when students start to get involved with this, they jump onto the internet, do some research, and we ask them in this project to write a food blog. Now, they can do this individually, they can do this in pairs, they can do this in groups. They can do this by using it as just a simple blog. They can have a visual prompt to show it. They could do this as a video and make it a vlog. There's so much that we can do with this lesson. Again, my dear friends, we're looking at education from a different perspective. We want our students to have, and I'm going to write it here to everyone. We want our students to have yes, it's that three-letter word right there that I just wrote. We want them to have fun. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard sometimes. But it starts with us. I'm giving you examples. I'm giving you some food for thought. But the truth is that when it comes to education, when it comes to education, we, the teachers, are what I'm going to write here. We are the bridge. We are the bridge between the book and the resources and the students. One key word that comes to mind is motivation. The motivation starts with us. We are the spark. Would you agree? I just have to make a little check to make sure everybody is here, because sometimes with the internet, we get a little bit lost. Yes, we agree. Thank you. One person said yes. Where are you? Come to the chat box. Okay. All right. And so when it comes to cultural literacy, we also have, as I said before, civic literacy. Here is another page focusing on the competency of civic literacy. Understanding rubbish, garbage. A CLIL page focusing on science. What happens to all the rubbish? Where does it go? So students are learning something outside of the English language, taking it into their surroundings where they're living, in their town, in their city, in their village, etc., and being able to figure out, be proactive to some problems that they're facing regarding rubbish in their hometown. critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, communication, and cooperation. These are the famous 4 C's. Yes? Critical thinking. Looking at a particular problem in a new way. Linking learning and across subjects and disciplines, and thinking about this outside of the box. There are 2 questions I'm going to ask you. Rhetorical, I want you just to think about this, okay? Do we promote and reinforce doing things that haven't been done before, where we have to rethink or think anew? And the second is, do we ask learners, our students, our FGACs, to generate and ask their own essential questions? Do we do this in class? Something I love to do is to give certain examples, especially with grammar and vocabulary. And I put students in pairs, and I ask students, for example, in vocabulary, give me the definition of these 3 words. And after giving the definition, please write a sentence. Instead of showing the words in the book or the interactive whiteboard, just show them 3 vocabulary words in the lesson and have them use their critical thinking to find out the answer. When a student is given an activity in reading or writing, to get those creative juices flowing, I want students to ask questions. But for students to ask questions, they need to speak. And to speak, they need to be coherent. And so students say, if I ask a question, I'm going to make a mistake. And if I make a mistake, I'm going to look silly. And my friends are going to laugh at me. Do you see how everything is connected? So we need to set an environment in our classroom where our students are able to and feel comfortable with using critical thinking. Asking those questions without hesitation. Asking those questions without wondering if they're going to be made fun of. Okay. So here's an example. A writing exercise. This writing exercise, the little screen just came down. Thank you all. Can I just take a time out? Time out. Thank you all for joining us today. Really, sincerely. Because I just saw the number of how many people are with us because the top bar just came down. Oh my goodness. Really. We sincerely appreciate the time that you're taking out to be with us. So thank you. Okay. Side note, critical thinking. Write and present. Make predictions about schools in 50 years' time. OMG. 50 years' time. What about some of the following? What will the buildings and classrooms be like? Will there be desks, books? Will teachers and students go to school? What different subjects will students learn? Will there be robots in schools? Present your predictions. This is crazy in a good way, right? It's insane in a good way. Because when kids get together to use their critical thinking, think about it, teachers, how life was 10 years ago, 20 years ago with technology. Think about it. Totally different. So, I mean, asking in 50 years' time, I wouldn't go so far. I'd say, how are things going to be different in 20 years' time? Okay, that might be a little bit easier for students to comprehend. Yes? Okay. So critical thinking, very, very important. Now, the second part of this, that they don't just write this in pairs, they have to present this. They have to present this. They have to come in front of class, stand in front of their friends, and present the ideas that they created through their critical thinking to the teacher and their friend, and be confident in doing so. How do you think they're going to feel? How do you think your students are going to feel if they have to come up to the front of the class to present this? Nervous, yes. Scared, yes. Fearful, yes. Unsure, yes. Self-esteem, I don't know. But this is something that they have to get used to. Because as they get older, they may be asked to do this. So why not start now? Let's get them out of their comfort zone. Creativity, trying new approaches to get things done. Inventions, innovation, creativity, to be creative. So my dear friends, do we promote, encourage, and reinforce inquisitiveness? Do we encourage our learners, our FGACs, to add their flair, their personal touch, their authentic experiences when it comes to learning? Do we do this? Do we have our students look at good? I was very happy to see the answer yes pop up on the chat box. Good, 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 good. Because let me be honest, and I think you're going to agree with me. Kids can be super creative. I mean, kids yearn to be asked to show their authenticity. Wouldn't you say? Their personal touch is so important to be expressed in class. Because we as a teacher, we may explain something, but when a student comes in and talks about that with their own personal touch, they are able to connect with their friends in a much different way than we can, right? So this is a fantastic little activity that we have in the book, and I absolutely love it. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. And I absolutely love it. Paper planes. Making a paper plane. Now, I don't know if any of you know how to make a paper plane, but this is a simple framework of how to make a paper plane. We can start to have students have a competition on how far their paper plane can fly. They use this as a base, but then they can get creative and they can go online and they can find different ways of creating a paper airplane. You can have another competition with a paper airplane by having students see how many times can it make circles? Can it go around and around? So many different things. Just giving you an idea from the book portal. Cooperation. Working together to reach a common goal. putting the talent from all of our students, their expertise in something, and their smarts to work in the classroom. Question: do we give our students those opportunities to cooperate in pairs or in groups? My dear friends, education works best with more than one. Right? You know the saying, two brains are better than one. Yes? English classrooms are never meant to be silent. English classrooms are never meant to have the teacher be heard blah, 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 blahing all the time. I want the blah, blah, blah to be from those students. And do you know what happens? Let me write it down in the chat box. This is what I call that. This is called where is it? The buzzing of little bees. That's what it's called. Hearing all the students buzzing, cooperating, sharing ideas, being creative, using their critical thinking. This is what we want. And here's an example of another activity with cooperation. A group survey. Do you work in groups of 4, ask each other questions, and complete the table below. Then report your answers to the class. Now, these pictures, these visual prompts, are just a guide. Do you wear jean jackets, baggy pants, a scarf, a belt, ripped jeans? Students can create their own list. They can find their own fashion icons and put it there. Okay. And have them make it their own, using their own authentic styles. And finally, the 4th C, sharing thoughts, sharing questions, sharing ideas, sharing solutions. This is what we need. We want our students to get away from the traditional mindset of, I have to learn for a grade. I have to learn to pass a test. No, you have to learn for life, as you said before, dear teacher. Right? So in communication, are we facilitating communication? Do we help our students to develop personal links to communicate? Let me share with you a quick story. I apologize for my throat. I have severe allergies these past days, and I'm sorry if my voice cracks. So I would like you to think about this. In my wonderful visits to schools around the world, I walked into a school one afternoon, and they were boasting their English program. And as I was listening to them, I was looking around the school, and I was absorbing the energy from the teachers and the students. I was listening to the classrooms as I was walking down the hallways. And When I entered the English classroom, the air in the classroom was very heavy. The chemistry in the classroom wasn't connecting. And I was asking myself why. So I had a little talk with the students. I got them warmed up. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, because when we laugh, it ignites dopamine, serotonin, we relax, and we are able to communicate a lot easier. And after that, I left the English classroom and I went for a coffee in the cafeteria to talk to the teachers. And some of the students that I saw in that classroom during the break came and they walked past us speaking in Spanish. And so I asked myself, why are they speaking in Spanish? I know very well that they can speak in English. And so the teachers soon after started to complain and share with me the challenges that they're having in school. So I suggested, in order to facilitate communication in a school, we need three things. And I'm going to write them here in the chat box. What is the mission of the school? What is the vision of the school? And what is the school culture? If in these three things, English is not incorporated somewhere in the vision, mission, or school culture, we cannot expect to have communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and all the other competencies facilitated in the school. Because, my dear friends, English is not just the 45 minutes that we are in the classroom. That they step into the classroom, they learn English, they step out of the classroom, they turn off the English switch until the next day. That's not how it works. Thank you, Natalia. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. So please, let's look into this vision, mission, and school culture. And this will help us to facilitate all of these competencies that we are talking about today, because it starts with us. It starts with the school and the faculty. So here's a quick example of communication. Speaking, guessing game, having fun with this, changing the vocabulary. You don't need to stick with these vocabulary words. Have students create their own list of describing and having their guessing game. Use this as a guide. So I touched upon some of the foundational literacies: financial, number 5, cultural and civic, number 6. We looked at the 4 C's, and now let's look at character qualities. And I have to say, these are my favorite. Judging a student by their character, showing them what character means. 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 lead to autonomous learning. And I give this example of the press conference. I don't know if you've ever seen a press conference before, but the person who is standing at the podium is literally in the spotlight. And everybody is just, shouting, yelling for questions that this person has to answer in that moment. So initiative, persistence, adaptability, leadership, curiosity, these are very, very important at this moment. Now, guess what? When you're in class and you ask a question, all of your students feel like they are standing at that podium. Like this, like this. And they're just waiting for that finger to go, you answer. And so, you know how that feels, right? And so we have to have these students realize that their character is something that is also important. Here we have a simple, beautiful lesson about Walt Disney and the history of Walt Disney and what was he about, his life story, talking about asking the students about the films of Disney, if they've ever visited a Disney park, and the history of Walt Disney, right? It shows that when Walt Disney began, he wasn't successful. He had to adapt to what was going on. He had to be persistent in fixing the mistakes and his failures. He took initiative, and only through being curious did he find that path, and later built this empire through leadership. Okay. Number 16, social and cultural awareness. Now, there's a lot to be said about society and cultural awareness. In this particular lesson, Red Nose Day in the UK. This is a speaking and a writing exercise. And with some of the examples that I've shown you, I picked these on purpose because we are not isolating the skills of English in our books. This is very important. We like to integrate the skills in the activities that the students are partaking in, whether it be speaking and writing, vocabulary and speaking, reading and writing, etc. Because this is how a language should be learned, through this integration. So here we give some background knowledge, and then we ask students to plan a description of an event. And students can create their own event in their cities, in their towns. And we give them this framework to work with. Okay. So the book that I was referring to was Portal to English, as you see here. And just to give you a taste of what this book is about, when students are learning English through this 4-level course book, the very first page for every module is called the cover page. And why am I showing you this cover page? Because if the cover page isn't something to attract their attention, then you have lost the game for the next week, the next 2 weeks. So here in module 4, time for a holiday, time for vacation, we offer discussion questions and then objectives as to what they're going to learn in this module. So the discussion questions, what does it do? It ignites what competencies right away? Critical thinking and communication. It introduces the topic of the module through visual prompts and a brief discussion. So we are warming them up. We are allowing them to relax. We are not surprising them with what's going to happen in the module. Then, after we have these discussion questions, we move to the objectives. In this module, you will be able to do the following by the end. This focuses on autonomous learning. These objectives that are clearly written and presented allow our students to do what? To get into groups, get into pairs, look at these objectives and say, can you do this? No. But you know what? I could do number 3. I could do, you could do the, number 1. You could talk about a holiday and traveling experiences. I can't do that. I can't do this, right? So this helps our students to use schema theory. And as they're doing this, you are facilitating, walking around, listening, saying, so my kids have an idea of some of the things that we're going to talk about. But let's take this one step further, because our students are connected to technology and they love little videos. What did we do? We incorporated a little video introducing the topic of the module and some concepts that will be delivered. So we are discussing, we're using our critical thinking, we are collaborating, we are using our schema theory, autonomous learning, and then reinforcing all of this in a short video for those students who may have difficulty. So we're presenting it in all ways. Okay, thank you very much for that comment. A1 to B1. Okay. And so what I want to also discuss is this. I know very much that our day-to-day interaction with students can become very, very tiring. And psychologically, when we teach, I've always said that teaching is not a 9 to 5. Teaching is a 24/7 job. And taking that into consideration, we try to offer you as much resources as possible to help you with time management and giving you a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C when it comes to teaching. My dear friends, once again, I thank you very much for your time, your patience, your professionalism, your dedication to being teachers around the world and teachers of Ukraine. Keep up the good work. You are the bridge.
Okay, I guess we are ready to continue. And as I have already mentioned before, we have a very special guest joining us for the first time today. So please give a big welcome to Ioanna. She's a fantastic professional and has a deep understanding of how best to teach maths and science. And she also brings a lot of experience from working with the books. So the floor is yours. You can share your presentation.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you. Give me 2 minutes. to share my PowerPoint. Is this okay? Can you see my PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Not yet. I think now it's ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Super. So, good afternoon from me too. I'm Ioanna Mіха. I'm very happy to be here today, but I was also very happy to attend the amazing presentation that my friend Greg made. Well done, Greg. Thank you for the information you shared with us. Today I'm excited to explore one new teaching model, the 5 E's teaching model. We will explore this model with you. And I think that we will see how this model can help us create a learning environment where students not just learn maths and science, but they experience these two subjects. Feel free to send at the chat and discuss about all these things we are going to discuss. So, let's go. Before we dive into the heart of this presentation, let me give you a quick overview of what we will discuss together. We will begin by looking at some of the common challenges we face as teachers in maths and science classroom, especially the barriers that make these subjects feel difficult or disconnected for many students. We will explore how students often feel about learning these subjects and ask an important question. Does having the teacher at the center of the classroom help, or does it hold our students back? From there, we will shift the focus to student-centered teaching methods and explore the potential of the 5 E's teaching model, which is a framework that encourages active inquiry-based learning. We will ask whether this model could offer a practical and effective solution. Then I will share some examples of how the 5 E's teaching model can be used in real classrooms. And finally, we will discuss the role of technology and how digital tools can support and enhance each phase of the 5 E's approach. My hope is that by the end of our time together, you will feel inspired and equipped with ideas that can help make your maths and science teaching more engaging, student-centered, and impactful. Let's get started. Well, let's begin by taking a closer look at what's really happening in our maths and science classrooms. These subjects are often seen as essential, but also some of the most challenging and frustrating for students. Many learners walk into the class already believing that maths and science are too difficult, or even worse, these subjects are not for them. This mindset creates obstacles before the lesson even begins. In this section, we will step into the students' shoes to understand their feelings, frustrations, and fears. Only by seeing these subjects through their eyes, we can begin to make learning more meaningful, enjoyable, and empowering. In both primary and secondary education, mathematics and science are subjects that frequently trigger anxiety and self-doubt in students. By understanding these challenges clearly, we can begin to think about how to overcome them and how to create classrooms that help students feel capable, curious, and connected to what they're learning. So, what do students really think about maths and science? I want to start with this question. From an early age, many learners start to believe that these subjects are very difficult and only for the smart or the talented. This mindset, often come from lessons that feel too fast for them, with abstract content presented without real-world context, or an overemphasis on right or wrong answers. Students often express feelings of confusion, frustration, and even embarrassment when they struggle to keep up. Mistakes in maths or science are rarely seen as part of the learning process. Instead, they reinforce the idea that the subject is not for them. By the time our students reach secondary school, some of them have already disengaged emotionally, seeing math and science as pointless or disconnected from their lives. This fear and lack of interest get even worse in classrooms where teaching is mainly lecture-based, with the teacher at the center and the students in passive roles. Such environments limit opportunities for exploration, discussion, or hands-on learning, all of which are crucial for building understanding and confidence. To address all these problems, we need to look beyond traditional methods and embrace approaches that acknowledge students' feelings, value their questions, and make room for active learning. This is where the 5 E's teaching model can offer a meaningful shift. Many students develop the belief that mathematics and science are difficult because of how these subjects are traditionally taught. Lessons often focus on formulas, procedures, and correct answers, leaving little room for exploration, creativity, or real-world connections. This makes learning feel like a test of memory, rather than an opportunity to understand how the world works. For some students, the pace of instruction is too fast, and when they don't immediately grasp a concept, they begin to feel left behind or not smart enough. At the same time, in math and science lessons, it is common a lot of time to be spent solving long lists of problems and exercises. I'm sure you understand what I mean. While practice is important, this can leave little room for thinking, discussion, or understanding the why behind the answers. Unlike other subjects where students can share ideas, math and science often seem a bit strict, where one mistake feels like failure. I'm sure you have the same experience when you were students. Over time, if students keep having bad experiences in class and don't get the help they need, they start to feel afraid of the subject and lose confidence. Moreover, without seeing how math and science apply to their everyday lives, many students start to believe these subjects are not only difficult, but they're also useless. Changing the way students see math and science starts with changing the way we teach, making learning active, supportive, and connected to students' interests and experiences. Something like what Greg mentioned before. Well, as we all know, in many classrooms, especially in maths and science, the teacher leads every step of the lesson. But what do you believe? Does this approach truly help students learn? Or does it hold them back? What's your opinion? You can share your thoughts at chat if you want. So, when the teacher does all the talking and thinking, students can miss out on the chance to truly understand, explore, and enjoy the maths and science for themselves. Before we explore student-centered alternatives, let's take a closer look at the challenges of keeping the teacher at the center of learning process. Usually in math and science classrooms, the teacher remains at the center of the learning process, delivering information, guiding the pace, and solving problems on the board, while the students observe passively. Boring. While this traditional model can ensure coverage of the curriculum, it often limits students' participation and deep understanding. When the teacher is the sole source of knowledge, students may feel like there's no space for their own ideas, questions, or ways of thinking. This can be especially harmful in subjects like mathematics and science, where exploration, reasoning, and discussions are essential for true comprehension. Instead of discovering concepts themselves, students are expected to absorb procedures and replicate them, leading to surface learning, not real understanding. This teacher-centered model reinforces the belief that math and science are only for the smart students who can follow along quickly. Those who struggle in silence or are afraid to ask questions begin to view these subjects as inaccessible and overly difficult. Over the time, unfortunately, this leads to low confidence, disengagement, and the belief that math and science are not for them. Now, let's imagine a different kind of classroom. One where the student is truly at the center of the learning process. Student-centered teaching shifts the focus from the teacher delivering information to students actively participating in their own learning process. We will see that these methods encourage exploration, problem-solving, collaboration, and critical thinking, skills that are essential for deep understanding in both mathematics and science. Do you agree? In this environment, students don't just sit and listen. Instead, they take an active role in their learning. They become thinkers. They become questioners, creators. They are encouraged to take initiative, ask why, how, and build their own understanding step by step. Students are not just receiving knowledge. They are exploring, solving real problems, working in teams, and thinking deeply about the ideas in front of them. They experiment, test, revise, explain, not because they have to, but because they are truly engaged. In a student-centered classroom, students do math and science, not just learn about them. They stop seeing the subjects as something distant or abstract and start seeing them as tools they can use to make sense of the world, to express their ideas, and to find creative solutions. As a result, students feel more engaged because they're not just listening passively, they are part of the action. They feel that their ideas matter, that their questions lead somewhere, and that learning is something they own. This shift transforms their identity, in fact. Students don't just say, I am learning science. They begin to say, I am a scientist, a young one, but a scientist. They don't just learn how to solve equations. They see themselves as problem solvers. Young, but problem solvers. Let's see some of the most important student-centered methods. First of all, inquiry-based learning, where students investigate questions, problems, or scenarios instead of simply being given facts. Cooperative learning, where students work in small groups to solve problems, explain concepts, and support one another's learning. The project-based learning, where learning revolves around real-world problems and long-term projects that require planning, application, and reflection. Of course, hands-on and experimental learning that is especially useful in science, where students learn by doing and using experiments and manipulatives. But what are the benefits of student-centered teaching in maths and science? Do you know? Student-centered methods bring many advantages to the teaching of mathematics and science. One of the most important benefits is how they boost student engagement and motivation. When students are encouraged to take part in the learning process by asking questions, exploring ideas, and working through problems, they feel more involved and interested. This is especially helpful for students who usually feel disconnected from these subjects. These methods also promote critical thinking and problem solving, helping students to go beyond memorizing formulas or steps. Instead, students begin to understand why things work, not just how. This leads to a deeper and more lasting understanding of mathematical and scientific ideas. Another major strength is that student-centered classrooms allow students to make mistakes without fear. Learning becomes a process of trying things out, reflecting, and improving. This builds confidence and encourages a growth mindset, especially in subjects where students are often fear being wrong, like math and science. Collaboration is also key. When students work in pairs, as Gregg also mentioned, or in groups, they learn from each other, explain ideas in their own words, and develop important teamwork skills. This not only supports academic growth, as you know, but also prepare our students for real-world problem solving for their life. Finally, these methods help students connect abstract concepts to real-life situations. Through hands-on activities, experiments, and meaningful projects, maths and science come alive. Students start to see how what they're learning applies to their world, making the subjects more relevant, useful, and exciting. But while student-centered teaching has many benefits, I want to be honest, it also comes with some real challenges, especially in math and science classrooms. First of all, these methods can be time-consuming and harder to manage, particularly in large classes where individual support is more difficult. Activities like group work, hands-on project, or open-ended exploration often take longer than traditional lectures. They also require careful planning from the teacher, and teachers must ensure that students stay on track and that the curriculum goals are still met, even when students take different paths to understanding. This can be demanding, especially in subjects with structured progressions and exam requirements. Another challenge is that some students may feel unsure or uncomfortable without clear, direct instructions, at least at first. You know, our students may be so used to being told exactly what to do step by step that the freedom of student-centered learning may feel confusing or even frustrating. Do you agree with this? Teachers also need to find the right balance between guidance and independence. This is the goal for us. In subjects like maths, where some concepts rely on precise procedures, it's important to know when to step in as a teacher and when to let students explore on their own. Still, despite these difficulties, student-centered methods, when used thoughtfully and with the right support, can reshape how students experience math and science. They offer the chance for learners to build true confidence, with curiosity and a deeper understanding of how these subjects connect to the world around them. And now, let's focus on the 5 E's teaching model. What is the 5 E's teaching model? This model is a widely used instructional framework designed to support inquiry-based and student-centered learning. It is especially effective in science and mathematics education, where understanding concepts deeply and applying them flexibly are key goals. Who developed it? The model was developed in the 80s by the Biological Sciences Curriculum Study, a US-based science education organization. It was designed to align with how people naturally learn through curiosity, experience, reflection, and refinement of ideas. And what is the teaching philosophy behind it? The 5 E's teaching model is grounded in constructivist learning theory. This philosophy suggests that learners construct their own understanding by actively engaging with the content rather than merely receiving information from a teacher. Knowledge is built throughout interaction with the environment, collaboration with others, and meaningful reflection. Well, the 5 E's teaching model is a powerful structure for designing student-centered lessons that build deep, lasting understanding in math and science. Each phase helps guide students through the learning process from curiosity to confidence. Here's how the model works. The first phase is engage. We begin by capturing students' interest with a thought-provoking problem, a real-world context, or mathematical and scientific challenge. This phase activates prior knowledge and sparks curiosity, making students eager to explore. In the second phase, explore, students investigate the concept hands-on through group work, discussion, or experimentation. So students begin to construct meaning on their own, form and test ideas, and share thinking with peers. In the explain phase, the third one, it's time to clarify and make sense of the learning. With the teacher's guidance, students connect their discoveries to formal scientific language and procedures, building accuracy and understanding. In the elaborate phase, students apply what they have learned to new or related problems. This, I'm seeing the chat that you agree. This helps them to deepen understanding and transfer their knowledge to different contexts and situations. The final phase is the evaluate. Students and teachers work together to reflect on progress. Students assess their own learning through questions, discussions, or tasks, while the teacher also evaluates the effectiveness of the instruction. So, let's spend some time talk about particular methods for each of these phases of the 5 E's teaching model. So, let's see how we can succeed in the engage phase. This phase we said is the first one and the most important part of the 5 teaching model. This phase sets a tone for an inquiry-based lesson. Its purpose is to capture students' interest, spark curiosity, and help them see the relevance of what they're about to learn and connect new learning to their existing understanding of the world. It also helps activate prior knowledge and sets the stage for deeper exploration. Let's see some powerful strategies to achieve this in your classrooms. First of all, connect to real life. Students are more motivated when they see how math and science applies to their everyday lives. You can begin the lesson with a real-world problem or scenario that naturally introduces the concept. You can also connect the topic to something relevant from daily life to make it feel important and practical. For example, an exam from science. We can ask students, why do we need to wash our hands with soap? And let them discuss about it. This leads into topics like microbes, hygiene, or chemical properties. Second, we can pose thought-provoking questions. Ask an open-ended or slightly challenging question, one that doesn't have an obvious answer, but invites students to think, guess, or debate, that makes students stop and think and may challenge their current ideas. The third method, use visuals, manipulatives, puzzles, and games. You know, maths, I'm a mathematician, and I deeply know that maths can feel abstract to our students. So using visuals, physical objects, or powerful pictures help them make concepts more concrete and easier to connect with. For example, we can use a pizza slices to talk about fractions, or building blocks to introduce volume or area. You can also engage students with a short riddle, pattern, or game that is playful but tied to the upcoming topic. A bit mystery or fun is a magic word, goes a long way. What is the fourth method? Appeal to curiosity and emotion. You know, we can tell a short, interesting story or give challenge that relates to students' interests, feelings, or sense of fairness. For example, you and your friends want to divide a pizza fairly, the magic word here. How do you do it? This activity leads to fractions, ratios, or geometric reasoning and invites emotional engagement of our students. Tap into prior knowledge, of course. Ask students what they already know about the topic to help them feel confident and connected to this topic. A quick discussion, brainstorm, or simple task works really well here. What else? Use a fascinating demonstration or phenomenon. You know, you can start your lesson with something surprising, puzzingly, or visually interesting to capture their attention. And some key tips for this phase. Keep it short, 5 to 10 minutes, it's okay. Let your students talk, let them wonder and ask questions. Don't give away the methods and let curiosity build first. Don't explain too much and focus on making them want to solve a problem. Make it sensory, visual, emotional, or hands-on to increase engagement. Keep in mind that the engage phase isn't about teaching the content, it's about lightening the spark. When done well, it transforms the classroom into a place where students are motivated, curious, and ready to learn. A strong engage phase helps students feel like scientists from the start, curious, observant, and ready to explore the natural world. When students are emotionally and intellectually invested from the beginning, they're far from more likely to stay engaged throughout the lesson. And now, let's go on with some examples for our international primary series. You know, in Vector, we have already published student-centered series suitable for primary and secondary students. So on your left, you can see a page from our International Primary Maths 1 for the first grade of primary schools. And on the right page, you can see a page from our Primary Science 2. These series have been designed keeping the 5Es teaching model in mind. I don't know if you have already used this series, but as you can see, the lesson plan starts with a section that refers to a corresponding picture, and there is an introductory question at the beginning of each lesson. The focus here is to engage students in the lesson, introduce key concepts in a stimulating way with links to students' everyday experiences, and motivate them to explore the picture through whole class discussion. It is very important that students are encouraged to have an active role in the discussion, but not to be guided to answer correctly. Providing sufficient time to students is also crucial in order to give them the opportunity to share their thinking and providing justification for their answers. We know very well, we are their teachers, that the students may not have the knowledge yet to answer correctly, but it is very important we don't correct students' answers at this stage of the lesson. Let's go on with the next phase. The explore phase of the 5Es teaching model is where students begin to actively engage with scientific ideas on their own terms. This phase emphasizes discovery, collaboration, and hands-on learning. Excuse me. Allowing students to build understanding through problem solving rather than direct instructions. In this phase, the teacher steps back from explaining and instead creates opportunity for students to investigate, try different strategies, and make mistakes and ask questions. The goal is for students to develop their own thinking and lay the foundation for concepts that will be formalized later in the explain phase. Let's take a look at some strategies suitable for this phase. First, present a rich, open-ended problem. Begin your explore phase with a problem that is meaningful and open to multiple strategies. Avoid teaching the method beforehand and let your students struggle productively and try different approaches. Second, let students investigate freely, but with purpose. Give students a clear question or problem to explore, but allow them the freedom to choose how to approach it. This kind of autonomy promotes critical thinking, creativity, and ownership of the learning process. The third one, use manipulatives and visual tools, hands-on activities, or experiments. Mathematics become more accessible when students can see and touch the concept. Manipulative drawings and digital tools support conceptual understanding. You can also start with a hands-on investigation that relates to the concept you are teaching. 4, promote group work and discussion, very important. Encourage students to work in pairs or small groups. When students talk through problems together, they clarify their thinking. They learn from others and develop deeper understanding. 5, encourage multiple strategies and justification. I think this is the key. Let students know there's more than one way to solve a problem. Encourage them to try different methods, compare their strategies, and explain their reasoning. So start asking questions like, how did you get this answer? How you solve it in another way? Can you do it? But science is built on careful observation and communication. So we can also ask students to collect data, to draw diagrams, to take notes, and discuss findings with their classmates. This helps them develop scientific skills and deepens understanding. But okay, you will say, what is the teacher role here? In the explore phase, the teacher acts like a guide. You know, Gregg said like a bridge. It's similar. Not a lecturer, a guide. The focus here is on supporting students' thinking, not directing their thoughts. We can use guiding questions such as, what do you notice? What happens if? What are your plans for solving this exercise? And why the explore phase matters in math and science? Because this phase builds deep understanding of concepts, scientific thinking, and inquiry, encourages critical thinking and creative and curiosity, and helps students construct knowledge through real experiences, developing observation, collaboration, problem-solving skills, but also critical thinking. But the most important is that helps students feel ownership of their learning. Some final tips for this phase: choose activities that are both hands-on and minds-on. Don't rush to explain, let the discovery happen first. Value the process as much as the solution and make space for mistakes, revisions, and discussion. Try to create a classroom culture where it is safe to try, it is safe to fail, and give enough time to investigate, question, and reflect. Well done. The explore phase transforms students from passive listeners to active thinkers. In one of our upcoming science series for primary students, in many lessons there are videos available related to the content, which serve as purpose for visually representing scientific concept and motivating students to get involved with science and realize its connections with real life. For example, here, we can see an animation about the frog's life cycle. This video can enrich our science lesson when teaching students about the fact that some animals look really different from their parents when they are young, but as they grow, they look more like parents. On this slide, you can see two explore science activities from our International Lower Secondary 1 series. This section includes scientific inquiries in which students have the opportunity to plan investigation, make predictions, observations, and comparisons. They will use equipment, take measurements, and all these scientific things. So in the first activity, our students will make a model that presents a planet's speed in its orbit around the sun, and test it, and finally answer the questions. While in the second activity, we will have our students make their own string up phone and plan a fair test to investigate how sound travels. The next phase I want to share some thoughts about is the explain phase. This is the phase that the informal thinking becomes formal understanding, and where students begin to connect their ideas to accurate scientific language, symbols, and procedures. To succeed this phase, it is important to strike the right balance between students' voice and teachers' guidance. Let's see some methods. Let students explain first. Start by giving students a chance to share what they have discovered during the explore phase. Ask questions like, what did your group notice? What do you think that happened? These questions give students the chance to construct meaning from their own experience before formal instruction begins. Second, connect students' thinking to formal concepts. Once students have done sharing, the teacher steps in to clarify and formalize the learning. It has to do with timing. This means that connect student strategies to correct mathematical scientific terms, formulas, and rules. Third, Use visuals and models to support explanation. Visual tools such as diagrams, manipulatives, labeled illustrations, and simple models help students visualize and understand the abstract processes. Thank you for your comments at the chat. Very happy to read them. Let's go to the fourth one. Introduce and emphasize scientific language. This phase is ideal for teaching and reinforcing symbols and formal scientific terms. Link its new word to the activity or observation it describes, and use them in context and connect them to what students have just experienced. The fifth one is, of course, clarify misconceptions and deepen understanding. Make this a two-way conversation. Give students space to ask questions, compare methods, and revisit their ideas. You can ask here, does this new explanation match what you observed? What would you change in your first idea now? And what are the goals of the explain phase? To clarify and solidify student thinking, to introduce formal vocabulary, procedures, and notation, and to help students connect exploration to structure and understanding. Of course, again, encourage critical thinking, questioning, and reflection. You know, when the explain phase is done well, students don't just memorize a method, but they understand it. On this slide, as you can see, there is a theory section. We call it Look from our International Primary Maths 2. Some of you, you have used this. In this section, the key mathematical concepts are presented through pictorial representation to facilitate the learning process. This is what we discussed before. The informal thinking gradually becomes formal understanding, and students begin to connect their ideas to accurate mathematical language, symbols, and procedures. And let's go to elaborate phase, where students take what they have learned and apply it to new ways. This phase is essential for deepening understanding and strengthening skills, and help them become flexible, creative, and connected. So some methods are to apply concepts in new situations, to combine mathematical ideas and show to them the connect of different areas of math or science, to use real-life applications, and of course, to design or conduct related experiments in science and make cross-curricular connections. For example, we can help students see how science and maths links to geography, to health, to environment, or technology topics. And of course, to solve real-world problems. What are the goals of the elaborate phase? But of course, to help students see learning as connected, meaningful, and useful. In a successful elaborate phase, students begin to move beyond simply knowing. They start to know and own their own learning. They explore ideas more deeply, connect concepts across subjects, and apply their skills with independence and purpose. On this slide, you can see a part of the activities of International Primary Maths 1. In this section, you can see that students will apply what they have learned in new ways. At the last activity, you will see a typical example of an embodied activity. You know, embodied mathematical activities involve students engaging in physical actions to help them better understand mathematics concepts. In this activity, students will count how many times they can clap their hands in a minute, or how many words they can write in a minute, etc. And in this way, they will have the opportunity to realize how long a minute lasts. Thank you very much for your words in the chat. And the last phase of this model is the evaluate phase. It is the final step. This phase goes beyond traditional testing. It involves demonstrating knowledge, explaining thinking, and engaging in meaningful self-assessment. In maths classroom, the evaluate phase focuses on more than just finding the correct answer, but it is about the process, the reasoning, and the strategies students use to solve problems. So I suggest use a variety of assessment methods, such as open-ended questions, visual models, comparison tasks, or verbal explanation. Encourage self-assessment, helping students to reflect on their learning and problem-solving approaches. Ask questions like, what was challenging about this task? What strategy helped you the most? In the same time, in science, the evaluate phase allows students to show what they have learned through observation, explanation, and application of scientific reasoning. You can ask questions to students to explain scientific phenomena, not just recall facts, but to explain. Use drawings, models, and discussion to evaluate students' understanding in ways that connect to real investigation. Of course, the teacher in this phase should observe students' interactions and practical work. And of course, to provide clear success criteria. This is very important, such as rubrics, checklists, so students understand the expectations. They have to understand what we expect from them. Focus on growth and progress, not just correct answers. And of course, give specific actionable feedback that guides improvement and builds confidence. What the goals of this evaluate phase? Assess students' understanding and identify misconceptions. Guide future instruction and reinforce learning goals. Help students build the ability to evaluate their own learning journey. At this point, I think it is important to underline that a successful evaluate phase does more than measure achievement. It helps students understand what they have learned, how they have grown, and where they can go next. It turns assessment into a learning tool, not just a final check. After that, I want to tell only two things about using technology. You know, technology opens up exciting new possibilities for applying the 5 E's teaching model in math and science. It helps make learning more interactive, visual, and personalized, supporting students at every stage. In this part of the presentation, I have only 5 minutes, I think. We will explore only 2 characteristic examples of how technology can be meaningful, used in each phase of the 5 E's teaching model. These are just some introductory ideas, but a full presentation dedicated to technology integration is coming soon, where we will dive deeper into this important theme. So, as we introduce the technology in our teaching, we are not only making lessons more engaging, but we are also helping students build essential 21st century skills, as Greg presented before, like critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, technology, literacy, problem solving, etc. By combining the 5 E's teaching model with the right technological tools, we can prepare students not only to succeed in school, but to thrive in a rapidly changing world. So let's see how technology can enrich the 5 E's experience and empower students to become confident, curious learners ready for the future. We will start by discussing how dynamic tools like GeoGebra can support our teaching during a math lesson. This kind of tool is powerful for the explore phase of the model we've discussed, because it allows students to experiment, visualize, and discover mathematical ideas on their own, without needing immediate explanations from the teacher. It makes abstract concepts interactive and hands-on, helping students to build understanding through active investigation. Here is how GeoGebra supports exploration in a math classroom. Students can manipulate shapes, graphs, and functions in real time, seeing instantly how changes affect outcomes. They can make predictions, test their ideas, and observe patterns by changing parameters and seeing results immediately. Instead of passively receiving information, students ask questions and experiment to find answers, strengthening their problem-solving skills. Many mathematical ideas like transformation, functions, limits can feel too abstract for them when they're only explained on paper. Tools like GeoGebra make them visible and dynamic, helping students grasp their intuition. GeoGebra activities can be done individually or in small groups, encouraging students to discuss strategies and compare findings. We could say that in the explore phase, these tools act like a mathematical playground, a space where students can safely try things out, notice patterns, and ask what-if questions. Let's look at the first example I have made for you using GeoGebra. In this example, students will discover the rules of reflecting a 2D shape through hands-on exploration instead of just being told the definition. They see the transformation happen and can predict and check and explain their observations, making it perfect for the explore phase of the 5E lesson. On the second example I made for you using GeoGebra, students will explore how changing the coefficient in a linear equation affects the slope of the line. And the last one, using AI to evaluate. It is important to remember that AI, while powerful, is not perfect. To use AI effectively in the evaluate phase, students should be encouraged to double-check AI-generated answers by comparing them to trusted resources like their student's book, class notes, or official lesson materials. This is not only ensures accuracy, but also builds critical thinking skills, teaching students not to accept information blindly, but to verify and reason through it themselves. By using AI tools in the evaluation stage, we are not only helping students learn math, but we are also teaching them how to use responsibly AI and thoughtfully. So let's look at an example here. I asked the AI to answer how many planets are that revolve around the sun. The students will realize that the machine's answer is correct when they look at the student's book and that the planets are mentioned in the correct order, starting with the closest to the sun. But after that, we can ask students to ask the AI machine to make a picture of the planets that revolve around the sun. And this is the picture I got when I asked the AI machine. After double checking the machine's picture against the picture in the student's book, students will realize that the machine made many mistakes and its picture contains a lot more planets than it should. So, technology and AI have the power to transform the way students engage with math and science, but using them effectively requires deeper thought and careful planning. So, all the examples I discussed with you was from our international series for math and science. And as we have come to the end of this presentation, I want to leave you with something important, something beyond the lesson plans and the models. The 5E teaching model is a powerful approach. It helps us structure lessons in a way that builds curiosity, supports deep understanding, and encourages students to think, explore, and reflect. But let's be honest, as teachers, it's not only the solution. It's not the only solution, and that's okay, because in the end, it's not just about which teaching model we use, it's about the kind of learning environment we create. It's about making maths and science feel exciting, meaningful, and human. We want our students to walk into our classrooms and feel safe to ask questions, to feel that it's okay to make mistakes, because that's how real learning happens, making mistakes. We want them to stop thinking they're bad at math or that science is not for them, but we want them to feel curious, capable, and confident. So imagine a classroom where students aren't just memorizing rules, but discovering patterns, testing ideas, and exploring possibilities, where they don't just learn math and science, but they actually do math and science, where they feel like real scientists, real mathematicians. Not just learners following instructions. That's the real goals. Whether we use the 5 E's teaching model or another approach, our mission is the same as teachers: to help students love learning, to make them feel seen, supported, and inspired, and to remind them that these subjects are not just for a few, but they're for everyone, because when students are engaged, confident, and curious, that's when real education happens. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Ioanna. Thank you so much for your amazing talk. And I honestly have a completely new perspective now on how to teach maths and science in a way that both fun and really works. And a big thank you to all of you for coming to our conference today. It was so great to see so many enthusiastic people with us, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And I hope you found it as interesting and valuable as I did. And if you have any questions related to the textbooks you've seen today, or you require further methodological support, please contact me, and I will share my email address in the chat box for you to have it. Okay. So please free to contact me, and I will be happy to help you. Again, one more time, thank you for your nice talk, and thank you for joining us today.